If I have gotten permission to text you, I might have opened the door to texting by asking a question. Today, we're going to talk about the psychology of texting and why text messaging is a game changer for software sales, for any sales for that matter. I also have a roofing company that does about $6 to $7 million a year, and we use text messaging for sales in that business as well. But I want to talk specifically about how it affects software sales. How do you use texting appropriately in software sales, and some of the mechanisms that increase the opportunities and the phone calls that you have. Now, before I get into that, I want to talk about why text messaging is so effective now in this market, in this day and age. And to understand that, we got to look back a couple of years. In 2020 till now, 2023, people's trust has gone down. 80% of people surveyed recently said that they're less trusting now than they were 5 years ago. And if we think about that, it might be because of or in spite of COVID and some of the things that happened. People became less trusting of other people. There was less association with other people. Some people are less trusting of the government, of people that are in control of businesses. And so there's a lot of trust that we have to overcome, this trust gap in sales. Now, that's always existed. The trust gap has always been there, but it's even bigger now in this day and age. And so we want to talk about, how do you overcome that trust gap? How do you build trust so that you can have more conversations? Now, you probably know that conversations lead to sales. All sales happen through conversations. And that's why we want to encourage and try to generate more sales conversations through automation, through these tools we're going to talk about today. Now, the traditional method of making phone calls, just smile and dial, that still works to a certain degree. However, you're still overcoming this trust gap. Mobile phone designers and creators and software on mobile phones makes it even easier for people to not answer their phone. In the last few years, Apple has made it to where you can have all of your phone calls silenced unless the person's already in your phone book. And Android does the same thing. And so when you think about this, we're trying to overcome a lot of different problems in this sales process. Before, if you're calling a business, you got to get through the front door, the receptionist. Now, if you even get the person's direct number, you have to overcome the screening that's set up on their phone to not answer unknown calls. So we're going to talk about how we can overcome that mechanism through technology, how to get this so that their phone does ring. And then we're also going to talk about, how do you use text messaging effectively? Now, before we get into all that, you have to first have someone's mobile number and permission to text them. With the changing laws in the United States, the TCPA, which oversees texting and calling and sales, we do have to be careful about texting a personal line because we have to get the permission of the person we're calling or texting to communicate with them through that medium. So in another video, we'll talk about that. How do you get the person to opt into texting? How do we get 86% of our leads to say, yes, you can text me? And it's not as simple as, can we text you? Most people say no to that question. However, the reason why we get 86% of people to say yes is the question that we ask and the benefit they get from answering yes to that question. So we'll talk about that in another video. There's been a shift lately towards more personal, more human connection, more human communication. People are craving human connection. A lot of people are distanced from family, from friends through COVID. And now we're several years past it, a couple of years past it, but there's still this gap that we have to overcome. So we're going to talk about the way to overcome that. And there's a difference in the way we look at things now. And so when we think about communication with prospects, we think about getting customer or leads to opt in and then following up with them. We have to think about, where are they at right now? Where are they in their mind? How do they see and perceive our brand or our company or me as a salesperson? And how do I overcome these hurdles or obstacles to get on a conversation with them? Now, if your product is like the best product that's ever existed and everyone wants it, you don't have these problems. But most people are dealing with this education, lack of education about your product or service, that you have to get into a conversation first and then open the door to this education and help people understand how your product or service overcomes the pain that they're feeling in their business or their direct to consumer, how it's going to help them in their life. And so when we talk about overcoming this trust gap, the first thing we have to do is get them to start a conversation. Now, if I'm calling you, getting you to answer the phone is difficult nowadays. However, if I have gotten permission to text you, I might have opened the door to texting by asking a question. So when I ask a question, an open-ended question, I'm getting that person to share a little bit more about why they inquired about our product or service. Or I'm asking a question about, hey, did you get a chance to watch that video? What did you think? Or did you notice anything about that video that would help you to improve XYZ in your business? And by asking these questions, we're just trying to get them to respond. And in this case, you can do open-ended or you can do yes/no questions. The reality is that we just want them to get a response coming back to us. And here's why. If I text you and say, hey, my name is Trent with XYZ Company, just want to make sure you got that video I sent to you by email. When you get a chance to watch it, let me know what you think. By the way, here's the link again. And then by doing that first one, we're sending the thing they requested, the email, the text we send them, we deliver the thing we promised. The next text is going to be, hey, what did you think about that video? Did you get a chance to watch this part in 3 minutes in where it talks about this? And then when we get a response, what happens is because I introduced myself in the first text message as this is Trent, your phone recognizes that this person is maybe Trent because they've introduced themselves as Trent. And then as soon as the person responds, what that has done is open the door for their phone to now receive a phone call from me and notify them maybe Trent is calling you. And so what this does is allows us to then break through some of the software limitations that are limiting us from getting through on their phone, because we've texted with them, they responded to at least one text message, and now when we call, it's more likely that we'll show up on their caller ID. Now, here's another secret you may not know. Even if they have Do Not Disturb turned on, if you call twice, probably shouldn't be sharing this right here. If you call twice within like a minute, what happens is the phone recognizes, you know what, this might be important. It might be your kid's school. It might be something that's urgent. And this person's also in your phone because it says maybe Trent. And so by calling twice, the first time it goes directly to voicemail, they call right back again. Oftentimes it'll ring through their device. So I'm kind of spilling the beans on some tactics that will really enhance and improve your ability to get through on your outbound phone calls, because there's the device manufacturers and the software manufacturers of these mobile phones trying to limit interruptions and to allow the customer, which is the user of the device, to not be bothered. So that's one of the things we want to try to get through is how do we open the door for communication by text? Because as soon as I get into a text conversation with somebody, it's much easier for me to call them and for them to answer the phone. They're going to feel much more open to a phone conversation once we've had a little bit of back and forth, maybe made it a little more personal, try to bring in some human element. Another key to getting effective responses to your outbound text messages when you're in that lead nurture stage before you've had a conversation or schedule an appointment is to use personalized communication in the automation. So when we send out automated text messages, we don't want it to sound automated at all. I want them to believe and to think that I sent that personally to them. And so what we're going to do is in our messaging during that first few stages of the lead nurture, we're going to try to sound as conversational as possible, merge in their name, not just in the first line. Hello, first name, this is Trent. I'm going to put their name later on in the message. Thanks for taking the time to look at this, Michael. Hopefully you get some value out of it. Talk to you soon. There is a difference in putting their name at the first, where all automation merges in first names, and putting their name later on inside that message. So that helps also to increase the likelihood that they're going to feel like this is a real person sending me a text message. I showed interest in their product or service. I should at least have the courtesy to respond back one way or another. Another part of the way that text messaging has become a game changer in sales is if we jump things properly at the beginning, we've texted them our V card and say, hey, save my contact to your phone just in case you have any questions in the future. Reach me. And then we've texted them, asked a question, they responded. These things increase the chances of us being in their phone. So when we call them, it will pop up as a known contact. Now, what we do before we do outbound phone calls to warm leads is we do a pre-call text. Again, we have to have received permission to text them. We segment our call list based on if they have said, yes, you can text me, or if they said, no, I don't want to get text messages. If they said yes, they're in one call list where we do pre-call text. If they said no, they're in another call list where we just send them emails and call them, but we don't text them. We do want to honor their request to not text if they say that. And it's also against the law and there's fines, and that's going to be increasing over time as more and more people start to sue companies that don't honor the TCPA opt-in requirements. You want to make sure your leads are opted in before you text them. Now, when we do the pre-call text, this is something we started in 2017. I don't know if other companies have adopted this terminology. We basically thought about what is the situation, use case where as a human to human communication, person to person, I'm texting a friend or someone else. a lot of my friends don't answer their phones nowadays. I've got to text them first, say, hey, can you call me in a few minutes? And then they'll call me back, or they'll answer when I call them for the reason stated. A lot of times our friends are even screening their calls. So in 2017, we started a test, and this test helped us to increase our call connection rate by about 40 to 50%. All we did was we text a bunch of leads that had opted in about 15 minutes before calling them and give them the reason why we're calling. Hey, this is Trent with XYZ company. I noticed that you request information about improving the look of your house and improving your lawn. We'd love to come by and talk to you about this, or I'm going to call you in a few minutes to talk to you about a special offer we have going on this month. Talk to you soon. And now I've stated the reason I'm calling, who I am, reminding them that they opted in, because a lot of people forget within 24 hours that they opted in. And then when I reach out to them, I call them, they're more likely to answer the phone because they know my number. They know why I'm calling, who I am. Now, there's one of three possible outcomes in this scenario. One, they just screen my call, they ignore me, they don't want to talk to me, whatever. Two, they might text me back, say, you know what, I found another solution. I don't need to talk to you anymore. Great, I could take them off my list, save my time from calling that person 5 more times and them not answering. Or three, they might text me back and say, hey, yeah, I'm busy right now, but call me at 4 o'clock. I'm interested. I guess there's a fourth option. They might answer the phone, right? And so if they answer the phone or if they text me back, those are the things I'm going for. Our likelihood of getting a text back and scheduling an appointment or them answering the phone went up 40% in most cases by texting before we called. So doing a pre-call text is an amazing strategy to increase your call connection rate. If I get them on the phone, I can more likely get them into conversation. And if I can get them into conversation, I can get them to schedule a demo or an appointment. Or if it's a one call close, I might be able to close them on the call right there. But there's so much power in being able to communicate human to human, speak as a human through text message, get into conversation, and then lead to a phone conversation. What I want you to think about is in your sales cycle, put yourself in the position or the shoes of your prospect. What do they know about you? If nothing, they don't care about you, they don't like you, they don't know you, they're not going to do business with you. So how do I get them to know, like, and trust me quickly using the mediums that are most effective? If I send someone an email, 20% of the people will see it maybe. If I got a good open rate, most people won't. It'll go through their filtering, go to spam, whatever. If I send them a text, most people will see those. Now that carriers have changed the rules around texting, and in the United States anyway, they're requiring each brand that is texting a business or a customer or a prospect register with the carriers through the campaign registry. Now that business is required to register for texting, this is going to open the doors to more texting being delivered to the device and not being filtered by carriers. Because if you are spamming, they know who you are, they'll shut you down, you'll never be able to text again. So for those who are effectively using this in their business and they're texting people who have opted in, then they're going to continue to get high delivery rates with these new changes in the United States. Now, the reason I bring this up is that as we are communicating with prospects and customers this way, and we're texting them, we're getting a conversation, this is going to improve our overall conversion rate for our leads. Our cost per conversion will go down, even if our cost per lead starts to creep up as the market shifts and changes, as your demographics might be narrowing, as you're finding out more and more businesses are affected by some of the things going on in the economy. You're going to see then that your cost per acquisition does not have to increase just because your cost per lead increases. Because as we are more effective in communicating these ways with text messaging, with phone, and creating human-to-human connection, then we're going to lower our cost per acquisition. Now, as we get into these conversations, human-to-human conversations, the more conversations that you can generate through being personal, connecting with people on a human level, then the more your organization is going to grow. And you'll find that a lot of people are craving this human connection. And if I'm communicating with them in a way that I can perceive how they're feeling about my brand, perceive that they don't know anything about me, how can I get into their mind as bringing value to them? How can I come into them with messaging that's bringing value to them, serving them? Whenever we think about the communication in a way that's human, personalized, and bringing value to them, to their business, to them as an individual, then the more likely they're going to respond to us and want to have a conversation. So these tactics are very powerful. They can be misused, but if they're used with good intent, where you are literally wanting to help your customer, your prospect, you see the value in bringing information to them to help them make the best decision to work with your company and buy your product or service. If you're doing this with good intent and you're really thinking about the value you bring to them, your communication is going to come across more genuine, and you're going to have more people want to have conversations with your company. So I encourage you to think about that as you go through your sales process. Put yourselves in the shoes of your prospect, your customer. Think about, how could I create more opportunities for human-to-human connection and conversation? And text message has a 97% open rate and read rate within 4 hours. Email about 20% open rate. So you're going to get much more impact if you're using texting, email, and phone together versus relying on just one medium. So the days of smile and dial are gone. If you want to have the highest impact, generate good quality leads where you're providing a valuable lead magnet or something that's going to hook them and get them interested, that will help them to understand more about your product or service and how it solves the pain point or the problem that they have. And then when you do communicate with them through text message, phone, and email, all these mediums combined, you're going to increase the chances of getting into conversation. Again, the more conversations, the more sales, the better your organization grows, the lower the cost per acquisition. And you can grow quicker and faster and more efficiently if you incorporate the mediums that people are more comfortable communicating with. Last thing I'm going to end on is texting is a very intimate medium. We text our family members, we text our friends. It's something that should not be abused by business. So if you're texting a prospect 5 times in the first day they opt in, they're going to opt out. They're going to hate you. They're going to hate texting. They're going to hate businesses. So we have to, as a whole, treat this like a personal, intimate medium, because that's what it is. I would not walk into your front door and shout out a message 5 times in a day when you didn't respond at all. You got to be respectful of people and respectful of the medium. Otherwise, it becomes inefficient. It becomes a negative things, and then carriers get more and more likely to block you. Another thing to point out, the higher the opt-out rate you have in texting, the higher the spam reporting rate you have in texting, the quicker you get your number shut down, and the carriers will not let you get another number. Your brand will be associated with your reputation as a texting business texter. So if you're texting people in your business and you're spamming people, they're opting out, they're reporting you as spam, you will soon find out that you will no longer be able to play in this space. The industry is tightening its self-policing so that the government doesn't have to. And so we're going to see this change over the next year. Make sure you're doing things the right way. You're being respectful, and you're thinking about your prospect and what they want to hear from you, and not just shouting at them, but trying to create a conversation for a two-way back and forth conversation.